Welcome back to the Amanda Fest podcast, where our intention is to inspire listeners to take aligned actions in their dream life, whatever that might look like for them. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm so happy to be here today. We have an incredible guest, my beautiful soul sister and incredibly inspiring friend, Nicole Brait. But before we introduce her, as we have always done, I would love to take a quick second to just get present and drop in. So wherever you're listening to this, wherever you're doing, if it's safe to do so, I invite you to close your eyes and just check in with yourself. Notice how you're feeling today. Notice where your head's at. Notice how your physical body feels. And just sit with that for a second. And I invite you to take a nice deep breath in and out. Maybe calling in an intention for this listening session. And with the exhale, letting go of something that no longer serves you. So taking a nice deep breath in with your intention in mind. And a nice breath out, letting something go. And I invite you to shake it out. If your body needs some shaking, you can make some noise. If you need to make some noise, whatever you need to do. Welcome to the space, welcome to your body, and welcome to Amanda Fest. So today I have my dear friend, Nicole. And Nicole recently left everything behind to pursue her dream of becoming a professional surfer, despite having only 2 years of surfing experience. Nicole is proving that with hard work and determination, anything is possible. So it is my absolute honor to invite my beautiful friend, Nicole. Nicole, welcome. Welcome to Amanda Fest. So happy to have you.
Very excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we dive in, I'd really love if you want to take a moment to tell everybody a little bit about your story of what you were doing beforehand, what kind of led you to switch it all up, and where are you now?
So we met at ICM, and then I moved to New York, and then I became a head of a department for a TV production company at the age of 23. I was selling shows to like Discovery, History Channel, Netflix, HBO Max at a really young age for somebody to be a head of a department. And so I was working for anywhere from 12 to 15 hours a day for about 9 years. And that is a lot on the body. It's a lot of stress on the body. I ended up going into the field, like transitioning from a desk job into the field where I was producing Shark Week shows, I was producing Food Network shows. And so that kind of gave me this freedom, I guess you could say, like a glimpse of freedom. And then I was in a really long relationship, and things in my life just didn't feel like they were aligning. 2 years ago, I just had this really overwhelming sense that my whole life was passing me by and I was just working. All I was doing was grinding, making money, spending money, going through this vicious cycle that just didn't feel fulfilling for me. And in the midst of this, breakup that I was going through, so all this happened, and I was like, I kind of got overwhelmed, and I was like, everything has to change. And I didn't know what that change was. And so within a matter of a week, I quit my job, I left America, and I broke up with my boyfriend. And I moved out of my apartment that we both lived in together. And the next week, I got a call from a friend who was like, Nicole, will you take a surf lesson with me? And keep in mind, like my whole life, I did really high level sports. I did high level soccer. I was on a professional path to play professional athletics. I ran track at college. I did gymnastics up until I was like 20. And so everything in my life had been about athletics. And then when I started working, everything about athletics decreased in my life. Like I played intramurals, but nothing really, it wasn't there. And my friend had asked me to take a surf lesson. And I was like, no way. I didn't grow up in the ocean. I was kind of afraid of the ocean. And so I was like, okay, I'll do it, whatever. And I took this one surf lesson with her 2 years ago. And going through all of these really chaotic changes in my life, something just clicked in my brain where it was the first time that I had felt a sense of relief. And that sense of relief kind of spiraled this whole journey into me quitting everything, moving to Brazil, and deciding that I'm going to be a professional surfer and compete on the World Surf League, compete for Poland, and kind of just see where this journey takes me. And so it's been really chaotic and stressful sometimes, but leaving the rat race is the best thing I could have ever done.
Wow. So many things, so many things. It's just a fuck it and find out kind of moment.
It's really just like I experienced it, and I see so many people who are experiencing it that just they live their day-to-day life in misery, like pure misery, and do not know how to escape it. And it's just like they're afraid. They don't know what steps to make. They have dreams, but they see them more as hobbies. And they just believe that with the system that we've all been exposed to and conditioned to, that it's just not possible. And that's a lie.
Okay, I love this. I have so many thoughts. I'd love to start off with, because I think that the first step in terms of stepping into a dream is knowing what your dream is, right?
Yes.
And it sounds like, for you, it's so funny how it always comes back to childhood, right? It's like we spend our whole lives doing things that we love, when we're young, and then we slowly step out of play and joy and presence and into responsibility and what we feel like we're supposed to do and what we have to do. Everyone that I know that has stepped into and onto the spiritual path, the very, very first step of that journey is all about inner child work, going back to your roots, going back to who you were before anyone told you who you were supposed to be, and rediscovering what sparked joy. Because it's
Yes.
not about discovering it, because like you said, you're like, you used to love doing sports, and I'm sure there are all these different elements to being a part of a team and playing something and being physical and all these things that you loved that you lost and then you found again, and you found it in a new sport. And it's just so inspiring and cool to hear that journey back to self and how surfing was able to do that for you. Does that resonate?
Yes. And it's like the whole thing about surfing is that, right, it's athletics, but it's kind of an art form, where you're kind of and I mean I'm doing shortboarding, but there's longboarders that's more of an art where it's like dancing on the water. And when I was a kid, I loved art. I was like a cartoon artist. I did a lot of graffiti. I did a lot of ceramics. And someone asked me recently, they were like, "Oh, do you do any of this anymore?" And I was like, "No, because real life called." And when real life calls, all of your hobbies and all of your passions go out the door. And it's a way that the world wants you to be, right? And it's not the way that it should be, but everyone has conditioned their minds to be that way, is to kind of leave their childhood behind and step into your adult life. And now, going through this whole transformation, it doesn't have to be like that.
Totally, totally. I mean, unfortunately, there is a reality of just the way that the matrix works, right? And the way that the universe
Yes.
works. And in order for you to feel good and to feel safe and to be able to lean into play, because I think when we're kids, we're able to be present and enjoy and play and have fun because we're being taken care of. We have grown up adults that are looking out for our well-being, that are putting food on the table, that are putting roofs over our homes, hopefully, right? And when we become adults, all of that responsibility falls onto us. And so I feel like so many people stray away from their hobbies, one, because they're told that it's unrealistic, right? And by the way, I don't think that you must pursue your hobby as a profession, but you have to have hobbies. You have to have things that bring you joy outside of work, or you're going to be miserable. And my journey was very, very similar to yours as well. I mean, so Nicole and I, so we actually met in the gym at ICM. I remember my first impression meeting you. I had never met anybody like you. I thought you were so cool. And the two things I remember is that you always had an incredible manicure. Your nails looked amazing all the time.
Now,
And you
not so much.
your nails looked incredible all the time. And you were like fearless. At that stage in my life when I met you, I had never solo traveled before. I had never been out of the country by myself or with friends before. I just hadn't stepped into that era yet. And I saw you, and I think you had just gotten back from Japan, and you were telling me all about your backpacking adventures. And I was like, this is the fucking coolest girl I've ever met. I
I
thought you
was
were
kind of like,
awesome.
I was kind of, and I didn't realize it back then, but starting from like 20 years old, and I'm 29 now, I kind of had started this like wild child journey back then where I started solo backpacking through Southeast Asia and through Asia and through Europe, just like me in a backpack. And I would tell my parents, like, oh, I'm going to go to like Cambodia and like the Philippines for a few weeks. And they'd be like, what, Nicole? What are you talking about? And I'd just be like, no, no, I think it's going to be okay. And they're just like, because my parents don't go out of the country. They don't really travel. They don't, it's a different thing for different generations, right? Like, you don't just take your backpack and run to a different country. That's pretty abnormal for them. And so, I don't know, I think that was kind of like the start of this whole thing.
What in you, so if it wasn't your family that inspired you, do you feel like it's something intrinsic? Was there somebody that you saw that you were like, oh, I want to do that? What do you think motivated you to feel so confident in yourself to be able to do scary things like that? I mean, as a young, 20 something to be able to just pick up and go.
This is gonna might sound crazy, but not to you, to maybe viewers. But I feel like I have had multiple lives. I do not feel like this is my first life. And so
Totally.
I feel really comfortable in other countries and other places. I feel a comfort in being in Japan. I feel a comfort being in El Salvador. I feel a sense of home in these countries that might feel foreign to other people.
I love that. I think that's incredible. And
Yeah.
I totally resonate with that as well. But yeah, I mean, and even just going back to sort of your background and your family, and, I know you grew up as a twin and your sister is incredible. I feel like you were on a very similar path to her. So I met Nicole in LA in like, it was 2017. And then when did you move to New York?
In 2019?
19. So after a few years of us meeting, I mean, and let me paint the picture for you. We had both just graduated college. It's our first job out of school. I'm working at a talent agency. I can't even describe to you. If you've ever seen The Devil Wears Prada, it's worse. It was so intense that everybody that we worked with at the time, it was almost like we went to war together.
We went to war in the office, right? We would show up at the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning. We'd be at our desks at 7:30. We'd be at our desks until 8 o'clock. And then we'd have clothes in our car ready to go to networking drinks. We would go out for networking drinks, come back to our cars at the talent agency, take a nap in our car, and then go back to the office. That is the kind of war that we went through.
Yeah, I slept in my car on numerous
Yeah.
occasions. I took a handful of lunch breaks napping in the car. At the time, I didn't know anyone in LA, so I didn't even have an apartment yet because I didn't know anyone who I could live with. So I was living out in Altadena, like 20 minutes away from the office, or no more than that, 45 minutes away from the office. And 20 miles away from the office.
Yeah.
And I could never go home because it was way too far.
I was an hour and a half living at my parents'
Oh my
house.
God. In
So
Calabasas,
I
yeah.
would keep like, and this is crazy. I mean, okay, so at the
We
talent,
did this, then we would party. Then we partied so hard.
yes, but we lived so far away and we made zero money. So gas was really hard. We couldn't afford a place to live. We had suitcases in the back of our car just filled our whole lives. I even had emergency boxes of pasta because I didn't know where I was sleeping that night. Like, I'd be like,
No,
in case I'm hungry, I have this bag of pasta I can make.
I don't think I had food. I now keep emergency snacks in my car because I get hangry.
Yeah, me
But
too.
I had, like, I remember I always had in my car, I had a bathing suit, I had a towel, I had a going out dress, I had heels, I had a work outfit, I had my gym outfit. And then when I started all these hobbies, I just kept everything in my car. So I had like, my roller skates, my this, so that if I was at work and someone was like, hey, do you want to do this? I'd be like, sure. Let me just go to my car really quick.
We were literally like ready for anything. And I think that is a key to why we are the way that we are, is because we are ready to jump at a second's notice. And if someone's like, hey, you want to do this? We're like, yep, see you there in 5 minutes.
So I have a really great example of this. Can we talk about Toto Santos really quick?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the epitome of the way Nicole and I's friendship works, and also just I think a really great indicator as to how we operate as people. So Nicole's traveling as she always does. She's posting on Instagram. Nicole's the most fucking cryptic Instagram storyer you'll ever meet in your life. She'll not post for days, and then she'll post a picture of a spoon with like a tree in the background, and like it kind of looks artistic, and you're like, where are you? I don't know, whatever. So she starts posting pictures, and they're beautiful. I think you posted an ocean picture, a sunset picture, a tree picture, and I was like, where are you? She is like, Mexico. What part of Mexico were you in when I messaged
I was in
you?
like Cerritos.
Okay.
No,
No,
I
no,
was
no,
in,
no.
I was in Cabo.
Okay, so she was in Cabo, and so I think I have a screenshot of this conversation. This is how simple the conversation was. I think that time actually posted the location, and I go, jealous. She goes, come. I go, K. Or no, it was like, I go, or no, it was like jealous, and she was like, come, and I was like, I would, and then she sent me a little tiny paragraph. She's like, hey, so I'm in Cabo right now. I'm going to Cerritos tomorrow. I could pick you up from the airport and we could do this, whatever. But it wasn't like a whole long conversation. It was like 2 or 3 messages back and forth. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to book it. I'm going to go. Why not? At that point, my job was pretty flexible. I could work remotely if I needed to. And she was like, yeah, I'm working too. We could work remotely. We could surf in the morning. I was like, I don't surf. She's like, it's cool. You'll take lessons. It'll be great. I was like, fuck it. Fuck it. I went to book the flights and I was trying to reach her. Also, this is another thing about Nicole, is that she's very, very reachable, and then she's not reachable at all. And you just have to be completely okay with that. So we messaged back and forth. She invited me to come. I was trying to confirm logistics with her. She's like, sorry, I'm whale watching on a boat for the next 8 hours. And I was like, okay. She's like, I won't be available till tomorrow. And I was like, all right, I'm just gonna book it. And then so I didn't even have any conversation with her. I fucking booked the flight, and then I just sent her the confirmation. She's like, great, see you tomorrow. And I did get on the plane, still no conversation. Get on the plane, land, and Nicole's there in a little cute bug car. And she's like, hey. And then we had this incredible week. So we flew into Cabo, and then we drove from Cabo to Toto Santos. Toto Santos is like a little surf town right next to Cerritos. Also, at this point in my life too, I don't think I've ever rented a car on my own. I didn't know we could do that. I don't think I would be half the traveler I am today if it weren't for the example that you laid in front of me, like hands down, no question. But yeah, she picks me up in this car, and I'm like, where are we staying? She's like, oh my God, I have this really cute Airbnb. We get to this town, it's desolate. There's no buildings, there's no restaurants, there's nothing.
There's no street signs, there's
no streets.
Roads.
There's no streets. Yeah. Shut up about street signs. There's no roads. It's dirt.
But to be fair, most of the places I go don't have streets.
But the best part was that I asked no questions. I didn't ask you where are we going, where are we stay. I completely trusted you, and I just got on a plane, and I was like, let me know how much I owe you for the car and the Airbnb. I'm here for the ride. And I'm so fucking glad. I'm so glad I did it.
And you learned how to surf.
And I learned how to surf. So that trip was incredible. So yeah, so we go down this little dirt desolate road, and the Airbnb was so cute. And we woke up every morning and we surfed, and we had tacos at the little taqueria. We made friends with some boys from Venice, California, because who else are we going to hang out with in fucking Mexico? And like, It was the best week. It was
It
such
was.
a nice week. I think it was the beginning for both of us of this glimpse into possibility of what life could look like.
Yes. Yes. It was like a glimpse of freedom.
Yeah. It was so amazing. It was such a good trip. We met Carlos. We met this man on the beach who then ended up giving us private surf lessons every day. I feel like when you are listening to your intuition and you're tuning in and you're not overthinking things and you're just truly going with what feels aligned and feels right, literal magic unfolds. One thing after the other, and it happens when you trust yourself. People ask me often, I'm sure people ask you the same thing, Nicole. They're like, how your life is crazy. All these amazing things happen for you. How? Like, how do you do it? And I really thought about it the other day. And I was like, I say yes to things that most people would say no to. We say yes to things that maybe aren't smart, that maybe sound dangerous, that maybe sound crazy, but we have so much self trust
Mm-hmm.
and so much belief in ourselves. And by self trust, I mean, I trust my intuition. I trust if a stranger invites me into their car, yes, I know everything that you're told is don't get in the car, but I really, truly, truly trust my ability to discern a situation. I'll say yes to things that sound crazy. And maybe I'll die one day. Maybe it'll all go to shit. Who knows? But so far, it works out. And the minute my alarms go off or my gut doesn't feel right, I take action. I never ignore it. I never ignore that feeling. And I think that is this self-protection. And I think this is kind of the culmination of all the things that we've been talking about so far, is getting to that place of being able to trust yourself so fucking much that you can do crazy shit like move to Brazil and become a surfer and know that no matter what anyone else says, you're doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I think that what you just said is about letting fear go. If someone asks you to get in the car, right? Everyone would be like, no, right? Maybe you would say yes. And that comes with our whole lives. We're told never get into a stranger's car. This is a bad example, right? But never do this, never do this. But if you let go of the fear and start making decisions for yourself, regardless of what other people may say, regardless of what other people might think, doors will open that you would never know would happen unless you just try.
Or I think a really good example is like safety advisories in other countries. Like
I moved to El Salvador, one of like the most
like
dangerous places in the world.
I have an example of a parent that's in my sphere that, found out their daughter was going to go to Mexico and like flipped out and was like, it's dangerous. But what that parent doesn't realize is that her fears around this country that she's never been to are one, fucking propaganda. Like, I'm sorry to be a conspiracy theorist, but it's also your own shit. And going back to the generation thing, like, I've met your parents, love them to pieces. They think you and I are fucking crazy. But I will say with your parents though, and mine too, I think our parents think we're crazy, but they believe in us.
Yes.
They really believe
Well, that's
because
because our
they
parents are amazing.
well, that's because our parents are amazing, but I also think we've proven to them that we're worth believing in. I
Yes.
think that time and time again, experience after experience, we've proven to them that we can handle our shit, that we can create amazing opportunities, that we can do things beyond their comfort zone and be successful. And I feel that from my mom all the time. There's elements of, it's not jealousy, but she's just like, oh my God, you can
Just
do
shock,
anything.
disbelief.
She's just like, you can do anything. And I'm like, so can you. You just have to believe that you can do anything.
Yeah.
That's the thing that separates us versus them. And now I'm talking in a grander sense.
Yes.
It's if you don't believe that you can accomplish something, you can't accomplish it. You're right.
Mhm.
Whatever you believe is right,
Yes. And like I
I think.
I I agree. I've trained my mind so much to be like anything is possible. Does not matter what anyone says, anything is possible. And I think a lot of that comes with the idea of investing in yourself and believing in yourself. And I think I think it's a hard learning curve for people when you start doing this kind of stuff because, and I think a lot of times it ends up being jealousy, like you said, right? If somebody sees you going for it and succeeding, they're kind of like,
It's
in a
not fair.
way, yeah. They're like, well, why
Yeah.
can't I do that? And it's like, you
You
can.
can. You
Yeah.
can. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I want to unpack jealousy, right? Where does jealousy come from? In those instances, it's a limiting belief that that person has in their own mind, and your pure existence is defying their perception of reality. And
Yes.
that is like very upsetting for people.
Well, that's why, like,
It's
so
triggering.
on my social media, I've had a few posts that, and I'm trying to be more active on social media to try to sustain the stream and like,
Yeah.
when you quit your job that is affording your whole lifestyle, you have to figure out other ways to do it. And so my way to do it is social media. And I've made a few posts that are, they can be seen as controversial. Like I've announced to the world that I want to be a professional surfer, and so many comments from middle-aged men who were surfers in their day, and you know they would comment and they'd be like, you're gonna drown, the ocean's gonna teach you a lesson, you can't do it, you're delusional, all these things, where at first it made me really upset and I cried a few times and I was like, I'm done, I'm finished. But then I sat with it and I thought about it and it was like, all of these people are projecting what they couldn't achieve on my posts. And
Yeah.
so
It,
while it's not the greatest thing that you want to see, it's like, okay, that's not directed at me. That's something that they have to work through, you know?
Yeah, it has nothing to do with you. And I want to loop back to the word delusional. I keep seeing this
So
over and
many
over.
times.
I keep seeing this over and over again where it's like delusion, you have to be delusional in order to achieve something
Amazing.
new and exciting and crazy, because the thing is like if you think about it, like anything that anyone's ever created, let's think about like going to the moon.
Yeah.
Imagine the first person that was like, I'm gonna create a rocket ship and put a person inside of it and blast through the atmosphere and go into outer space and land on another thing in the sky.
Yeah.
So people are like, you're fucking out of your mind.
People would be
Like
like, you have
you're
problems.
deluded. Or
No.
planes. Think about planes. Think about someone being like, I'm gonna put a metal canister and put humans in it and let it fly through the sky like a bird. I mean, like these ideas and these amazing inventions and things that exist in this world came from pure fucking delusion.
Yes.
Delusion.
The delusions are what make the people the most successful. If your dreams are average, you will stay average. But if your dreams are a little bit delusional, you are going to go great places. That is my belief.
I agree with you, and I will also say it's okay to have average dreams. Like that's totally
Yes.
fine. But be honest with yourself about what your dreams are. I think that's the biggest piece of it, because for us, I think that you and I, we found each other, and I'd love to touch on our card that we pulled right before we got on this podcast, because it's so fucking in line with it. I believe that everybody, that when you're born, you have a soul calling. And
Totally.
some people's soul calling is big and grand and massive, and they're meant to do something massive and have great impact and do like amazing. And there's some people whose soul calling, maybe it's to be able to afford a home and have a beautiful family and live happily ever after. Amazing. If that's true for you. Where I'll loop it all back to you, Nicole, is so going all the way back. So we met in California. She goes to New York for a while. We took a little hiatus where we didn't, like, I saw you a couple times while you were in New York, but like we were like spending like every day together when you were in LA. Our friendship took a little bit of a break. And then you came back to LA. I remember coming back to your apartment the first time I saw you in like a year. And you were dating this guy that you had been with for, at that point, what, 4 years?
Yeah.
4 years. And I just remember stepping into your home. It felt like you were married. Like you were domesticated. You were with this very sweet man, like very kind, amazing soul.
Mhm.
But as someone that knows you and knows your spirit, I was like, something feels off
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Something doesn't feel, this doesn't feel you, because it felt like you were settling. It felt like you were playing house and living, and by the way, your apartment was gorgeous, like fucking Marina Del Rey, beautifully furnished, amazing photos with your partner travel. Like, I mean, like on paper, you had it all. You had
Yeah.
a great paying job, you had a great boyfriend, you had a great apartment, you had amazing, like everything was perfect. And yet it from my perspective, it didn't feel like you. And I had a really similar situation too, where when I stepped away and packed everything up and put everything in storage to go on my little eat, pray, love journey, it's not like I left because things were bad. Things
Right.
were great, but there was this deeper yearning and soul calling for something more.
Mhm.
And when you decided to say fuck it all, and I remember the fucking phone calls when you were in the middle of making these big decisions, and everyone in your life was like, Nicole, you're absolutely crazy. You should just marry this guy and live happily ever after. What are you doing? Just have babies and, be
Call it
domestic.
a
You
day.
did it all. You did it all. You got the job. Like on paper, you achieved success,
Yeah.
but that wasn't your version of success, and it never was. And thank God that you recognize that, because so many people never arrive there, and then it manifests in all these different ways. Like I keep talking about Saturn return. We should look at, have you ever looked at your dates of your Saturn return?
I feel like maybe, but I don't really understand.
Okay, so Saturn return is right around like, 28, 29. It's different for everyone. If you ever like look it up, it's amazing. But it's essentially the point in your life in which it's like the midlife crisis. It's
I
like a
think
mirror.
I'm in mine.
What?
I think I'm in mine.
I'm in mine too. I'm not done till next year. I thought it was almost over. I still have a lot more time left, and that makes so much sense. But essentially, what it is it's the period in your life when the universe holds a mirror up to you. It basically is showing you whether or not you are in alignment with the life that you've currently chosen. And if you are, amazing. If you're not, it starts to become blaringly obvious, and then you have two choices. You can choose to take action and step into a more aligned life, and or you can choose to ignore it. And those who choose to ignore it end up alcoholic, depressed,
Yeah.
like miserable, mental health issues. I mean, things start declining really fast. But it's hard because imagine, in your situation, thank God you weren't married, but like the deeper you are into a journey, I mean, at that point in life, there are many people that are married, that have children, that have shared expenses, that have responsibilities. So to just say, fuck it all, I'm going to become a professional surfer, for them, like that, I think that's where the jealousy comes from. And that's where like the anger comes from, is like, it's an absolute privilege to get to do what you've done. And yet, it's still a choice that's possible for people. It's just figuring out how much do you want it and
Yeah.
how are you going to make it happen.
And right. I think that even if my life was more complicated before this point to make these decisions, that it still would have been possible, right? If you have a kid, or if you are married, or if you have those kinds of responsibilities, like there are avenues to take, right? Than just being stuck.
It's just, but it's hard. And that's why people stay in abusive relationships. This is why people stay in jobs that they hate, because as human beings, we're conditioned to crave safety and security. We attribute safety and security to the known. The unknown may end up being great and grand and better than we could ever imagine, but that's also not guaranteed.
Hmm.
And so there's, high risk, high reward.
But at least you tried, right? If you
For
don't try,
sure.
you'll never know.
And I one of my life philosophies too is I'm like, I don't regret things ever, because I believe that every single thing, that's every choice I've made, every person I've met, every experience I have, has taught me something that was absolutely necessary. It was a completely necessary lesson for me in order to step into my next iteration. And so I think that your entire journey, I don't think you would have appreciated where you're at right now had you not been in what you were in before and recognized that that wasn't your dream.
I had like the nicest of everything. Like I had everything built out for me. And for the past year, I've been living in third world countries in like wet environments. You would look at the comparison and be like, why is
Why?
she doing
Why?
this? Yeah, yeah. But I think that's where it's just, if you have it all and you still feel like something is missing, do not ignore it. Because I'm happier than I've ever been in my whole life, and I live in a shack, I live in like a shack in a sleepy surf town in Brazil, and I could be living in a multi-million dollar house in Marina del Rey, and I chose not to.
But that's amazing, though. And I think that just goes to show, so many people's versions of success are conditioned and
Totally.
warped. And, it's like this game of performing for others and showing people how much you
So
have and da 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 da
what
da
is
da
it
da da
called?
da.
It's called like the you're always trying to outdo your neighbors. You're always trying to have like the nicest car in your
Oh,
in your
keeping up with the Joneses.
yes, like you always want the nicest car in your driveway so that your neighbors come by and they're like, "Oh, she drives
Wow.
a Tesla? Like when? What job do they have?" Right? It's not for you, it's for the people around you.
It's not authentic. So before we got on this call, I have this incredible Oracle deck. It's this artist John Mosley. He's based in Sedona. It's amazing. I was telling Nicole before we hopped on it, which is so crazy, that I've worked with this deck for years actually now at this point. And I continue to pull the same 5 cards every single time I pull this deck. Then when I have someone new come and use the deck, they pull different cards that I've never seen in my life before. So before we started, we did a virtual one together, and I kind of put my hands over the deck, and Nicole told me when to stop. And we collectively pulled the wolf spirit. And I would really love to share a little bit of what was on there because it was so perfect for this conversation. So, the wolf spirit, the 3 pillars of it are wildness, freedom, and belonging. And the little quote is, I belong and I'm free. My highest responsibility is to my freedom and to yours. The wolf spirit represents wildness and freedom. More than any other animal, the wolf elicits strong reactions in people, both positive and negative. The wolf is historically one of the most feared but also revered members of the animal kingdom, which I just think is absolutely perfect. Though the wolf has often been vilified, these magnificent, powerful, and intelligent beings have much to teach us. In order to thrive in the wilderness, wolves live in highly organized family and social structures, and each individual having an equally important role to play in the pack. Wolves show us how to live in the perfect balance of tribe and family, along with wildness and freedom. With this understanding that one is necessary for the other in order to fully thrive. If wolf spirit is your ally, it's important to find and play your part in a tribe, but even more important is your responsibility to yourself and your path. You will never stoop down from this in order to be a part of a group with which you don't belong. I think that goes right back to the keeping up with the Joneses. You may at times find yourself misunderstood or even criticized for following your truth, but you are on your path. You're more than willing and capable to go it alone until, in Spirit's timing, you will be with those who support and celebrate your highest calling. And you will find each other because forming tight-knit bonds with other like-minded spirits is wolf spirit's medicine. I
It was the most
fucking,
perfect.
I fucking just love that. And going back to the tribe piece too, and I wonder, I'd love to hear your experience on this as well. I mean, I've been traveling now full time for the last year. And what I'm realizing as I step more and more into my authenticity and listen to my gut and follow my truth, I am finding my people so much faster than ever before. I'll arrive somewhere new, and within 1 to 2 days, I have like incredible friends. And not like surface level, let's go get coffee friends, but like deep soul connections with people that used to, I mean, in my childhood, I had one or two friends that I felt that way about. Growing up, it took me years and years and years to find that. And now I'm like, rinse, repeat, new location. Because what I believe is when you're in your authenticity and you're following your dreams and you're completely being true to yourself, you're allowing those who are meant to find you to find you. Because when you're pretending to be someone else and when you're not living your truth, your people aren't going to recognize you. They're not going to see you. They're not going to find you as easily. I'm curious to hear a little bit about your journey and experience with that.
So I believe that. My whole entire body believes that because
Yeah.
I mean, I've always had a lot of friends. I've always had good friends and, make friends easily. But a lot of times, when we're in the rat race, we have party friends. We have friends that we work really hard and you just go out and you have dinner and then you go to the club and whatever it is. And last year I moved to El Salvador, the country in Central America, and I was just like, I'm going to start the surfing journey. I am a free spirit, wild animal. I'm just going to El Salvador. And being in El Salvador, I met like some of my lifelong friends to this date. And that was when I kind of clicked in my head where I was like, the people that I'm meeting are on the same path as me. They have the same mindset as me. And so, me being in this new life and this new area that feels so authentic to myself is attracting people to me that just get it. They get
Yep.
it.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So what advice would you give to listeners who are desiring to step into whatever their dream is?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any words of wisdom in terms of how to get clear on what that dream is, how to move past the fear of stepping into that, and anything like practical or tangible that we can sort of leave our listeners with here?
I think my biggest advice in going through this is that like it is really hard. Like nothing about this is easy and it's not supposed to be easy. Big changes in your life are supposed to be difficult. And so if something is feeling really easy or it's feeling really stagnant, maybe it's just because you're not challenging yourself enough. And so if you let go of that level of fear that you have and just make one decision, just one, and see how it goes, that could either give you confidence to move forward or it could give you the lesson from the universe to say, okay, stop. You're not ready for it. And that's okay. But at least you made that one decision to try and move in a direction that you want to go to. Something that I use when I want to make decisions is I use a lot of visualizations. And so if I want something to happen, I will sit for 10 minutes a day with a meditation on, and I will visualize in my head and on repeat for 10 minutes exactly what I want to happen. I think that visualizations is really powerful for the mind. And I think that doing visualizations and immediately following it up with a manifestation, writing it down into the universe, what you want to happen. And this might sound crazy, but every single time I've done this, my visualization and a manifestation has come true. And I think that is just allowing your brain to put into the universe what you want to happen. And then it feels less scary because in your brain it feels like you've already done it before.
I fucking love that. That was one piece that I just wanted to clarify because I think when I first started hearing, manifestation, I think there's a lot of misconception. It's not magic, it's not voodoo, it's science, first of all.
Yes.
But there's two elements to it that I believe to be very, very important. And one of them is exactly what you just touched on is it's not just saying it and thinking it, it's actually feeling it and getting that felt sense in your body of what it would feel like to already have the thing that you're imagining. That's the
Yes.
piece of it because exactly like you said, it's like so that when the opportunity presents itself, your brain isn't going, oh my God, that's not possible. Your brain's going, oh, I can already feel what that feels like when that's going to happen because it's going to happen. And the second piece of it is aligned action, right? So you doing that mindset work is beautiful, and I'm so happy you shared that, and I actually need to infuse more of that into my practice. But doing that mindset work and then actually putting yourself in the rooms where things are happening, right? Mm-hmm. Putting yourself in those situations, because if you are stuck in your practices and only doing mindset and only doing your writing and this and that, but you're never putting yourself out there. For example, if you're calling in a partner, right? If you're sitting there and visualizing it and writing it down and amazing, beautiful, but if you never leave your house, that's not going to do anything. You have to do that work and then go on a date. Mm-hmm. Step outside, say hello to someone, like flirt with the man in the street. And that's scary and that's a lot, but I think it's the combination of this mindset work and aligned action is what will lead you towards achieving your dreams. And before you do all that clarity, right, of being clear and honest with yourself with, is what I'm calling in what I actually want or what I'm supposed to want?
And I think that a lot of times when you're in these visualizations, that will come to light. If it feels organic and if it makes you feel happy and excited, then you know that is aligned with you, versus if you're just going through the motions and it doesn't feel right, but you're like, I'm supposed to do this. That's kind of a thought in your brain like, okay, maybe I should reroute a little bit.
This is again why I do this breath work at the beginning of the podcast, to just help people understand how to come into their bodies. And specifically, I do this because I was dissociated from my body for like a really, really long time. So for me, being present in my body and having feelings is still fairly new. So I very much understand people that are where I was a few years ago. At the same time, once you start to build this connection to your body and this understanding of how to tune into your emotions and tune into your inner world, you'll notice your body responds to things. So this person that I met the other day said that he does this thing with his hands where when he has a decision to make, he imagines the decision in his hands, and it either like feels contracting or feels expansive, and that's how he knows what to do. And I think, you know, the hands as a visualization, you could do it into tuning into but feeling your physical body of like imagining two different outcomes and seeing how that resonates physically for you is extremely telling. Or even noticing energetically how you feel when you're around certain people, right? Are there certain friends, and I'm going to use heavier quotes there, friends that you hang out with that when you're with them or after you're with them, you feel icky and you feel tired and your body hurts and you're like, ugh, versus those friends that after you chat with, you're like, oh my God, everything is possible. Everything's amazing. The world is beautiful. And for me, I've reached a point now in my journey where I only have those types of friends. And that's why I started this podcast, because I have so many of those friends that I'm like, yo, I need to give them all a platform now.
No, but it's true. It's like tapping into those kinds of feelings will change everything.
Totally. But it takes work. That's why I love talking about dreams and love talking about this stuff, because it's from a cognitive level, like it's like, okay, I have a dream and I'm going to achieve it. But there's real work that goes into it. And we didn't even touch, I mean, we could do a whole fucking other episode just talking about what you're actually doing out there, what your regiment looks like, what your diet looks like, what your routine looks like. I mean, you're putting in work. You're not just like frolicking around saying, I'm going to be a professional surfer. Like, it's not how it works.
I have a full-time job trying to do this. I have a training schedule and a gym schedule and a nutrition schedule and a content schedule that now takes up 10 hours of my day, 10 to 12 hours of my day. And that's like a full-time job. So this is not easy. This is not playtime. To achieve your dreams and to go for your goals, it takes work. It takes an unbelievable amount of effort. And I think effort is the thing that drives your success, and the journey to get to your goal is also everything. It's not necessarily the end product, because if you don't enjoy the journey to get there, then it just might not feel as fulfilling as you want it to be in the end. So making sure that every day you're really present and you're really in the moment and you're really focused on your goal, I think is everything. That, it's more than the goal. The journey is more than the actual goal itself.
Totally. And I think before we wrap, like just to touch on one more point there, I also think it's very important to continue to check in with yourself and recognize when because sometimes like you might wake up one day and not feel the same way that you feel about surfing anymore, genuinely.
Yeah.
And at that point it's okay to pivot. I think that as a society we're also told follow your goals and dreams and see it through, like little kids that want to quit little league and they're like, no, you have to finish the season. It's like, I understand there is a piece of setting your mind to something, and it's not giving up because it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even giving up, but I believe that there should be some room and flexibility in allowing yourself to pivot when that is what is true. Because I think that's how this whole journey started for you. That's how this whole journey started for me, where it was like I was pursuing something that I was extremely passionate about and I loved and I cared about. And then I as a human being changed and shifted, and so my goals and dreams changed and shifted. So when I stepped away from what I was doing, I didn't quit, I didn't give up because it was hard, I didn't stop because I didn't believe in myself, I didn't have the same desires anymore, so I gave myself permission to pivot. And I think that's really important.
And I also think that that's why the journey is so important, because if you're enjoying every single day of what you're doing, then that pivot seems much more achievable and okay, right? If you're not enjoying it and you're like, oh, but I didn't reach my goal, that can be really daunting. And so if every day feels like a success, then you pivoting that goal doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all.
Well, and the crazy thing too is that the goalpost is always moving.
Totally.
You hear time and time again from Grammy Award winners and Oscar winners and competitive anyone where it's like they're standing there with the fucking trophy in their hand and they're like, okay, what's my next project? What's the next
Yes.
thing that I'm gonna do? Now I have one award. Now I want three. Now I want this. So it's like you always feel like that moment is going to feel so amazing. And yes, of course it does. But if it's truly something that you love and you're passionate about, you're never done.
That's the cool part. That's the cool part about following your dreams.
Yeah. Nicole, this has been so amazing. I said before we started, I was like, I need 24 hours to really like
So
dive
much to
into
catch up on.
dive into conversation with you. But yeah, but this has been an incredible conversation. I feel so lit up and inspired and excited. I'm definitely gonna take with me some of those I love the idea of doing that meditation manifestation practice of sitting with it, feeling it, and then writing it down and just really imagining in my body what it feels like to achieve that thing. So I'm gonna start doing that. I'll report back.
It'll change
But
your life. I
I,
promise.
I can't wait. But before we close, I would love for you to share how people can connect with you, how they can support you, where they can find you, what you're working on, anything that you'd love to share. This is the time.
So I am documenting this whole journey on YouTube. I've started a YouTube series. I have quit my traditional job, and the way that I am going to make it and to afford and be able to continue this dream is via YouTube. And if anybody feels so inclined to just press the subscribe button, every subscription helps, every view, every like helps. And so I'm doing this in a really organic way to just show everybody the journey and to show everybody my daily trials and tribulations and what's succeeding and what's failing. And hopefully I can share some advice in that way too. I'm also on Instagram as The Brait Life. And so feel free to reach out anywhere. And I hope that everybody feels so inclined to follow their dreams and their passions and just realize that nothing is too small for you to be able to achieve. And if you have a goal, just go out there and do it.
Yay, Nicole, this has been such an incredible conversation. Thank you so much. All of the links to her page and YouTube are going to be down below in the description of this podcast. I'm so grateful to have had you and looking forward to next episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Amanda Fest. I hope you have a beautiful and inspired rest of your day. Until next time.